The funeral reception was still going on downstairs when Claire cornered me in the bedroom I'd shared with her mother for 8 years. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 52 years old, a civil engineer in Sacramento, California. My wife, Linda, died 3 days ago after a 2-year battle with ovarian cancer. I was still numb, still moving through the world like I was underwater, when Claire made her announcement. "We need to talk about the house," she said, not even waiting for the last mourners to leave. Claire was 31, Linda's daughter from her first marriage. She worked in real estate in San Francisco, drove a Lexus, and had visited her mother exactly 4 times during the entire cancer treatment, always too busy, always with some excuse, always promising to come next month. "Can this wait?" I asked quietly. "No, it can't. Mom's gone now, and I need to know your plans." I looked at her, this woman who had her mother's eyes but none of her warmth. My plans? For moving out, this house belonged to Mom. It should stay in the family, real family. The words hit like a physical blow. Real family. As if 8 years of marriage, 2 years of hospice care, countless nights holding Linda's hand through the pain meant nothing. Claire, your mother and I, were married for 8 years. I'm her daughter. I've known her my whole life. This house has been in our family since I was 6 years old. Technically true. Linda had bought the house in 1999 after her divorce from Claire's father, a modest 3-bedroom in East Sacramento, worth maybe $180,000 back then. Worth considerably more now, given California's real estate market. "I loved your mother," I said. "I'm sure you did, and I'm sure she was grateful for your help during her illness, but the house belongs to me now. I'm giving you 30 days to find somewhere else to live." 30 days? That's generous, considering. I could have you out by the end of the week, but I understand you need time to grieve. I stared at her. Downstairs, people were eating the sandwiches I'd ordered, drinking coffee I'd made, sharing stories about Linda, while her daughter stood in our bedroom giving me an eviction notice. "Does your brother know about this?" I asked. Claire had a younger brother, Marcus, who lived in Portland and had actually visited his mother regularly. "Marcus agrees that family should keep the house. He's not interested in living here, but he supports my decision." I doubted that. Marcus and I had developed a good relationship over the years, but I was too tired to argue, too hollowed out by grief to fight. "I'll start packing," I said. Claire looked surprised. "Just like that? No arguments? Would it change anything?" "No." "Then why waste energy?" She left the room, and I sat on the bed where Linda had died, looking at the space we'd shared. The room we'd painted together. The furniture we'd picked out. The life we'd built. Gone, apparently, because I wasn't real family. I started packing that night. Not everything, just my personal items. Clothes, books, my engineering documents, photos of my parents. I left Linda's things untouched, unable to face sorting through her belongings just yet. Claire stayed at the house that night, sleeping in her old bedroom like she was already the new owner. The next morning, she was on her phone with a real estate agent discussing potential renovations. "The master bath needs updating," she said, not bothering to lower her voice. "And we should knock out that wall to open up the kitchen." The kitchen Linda and I had renovated 3 years ago. The bathroom where I'd helped Linda shower when she was too weak to stand alone. I loaded boxes into my truck and said nothing. Marcus called that afternoon. "Rob, what the hell is going on? Claire's telling me you're moving out." "She asked me to leave. I'm respecting her wishes." "She doesn't have the right to ask you anything. You're Linda's husband. That house is yours." "It's complicated, Marcus." "It's not complicated. It's wrong. Don't let her bully you." "I'm too tired to fight, Marcus. I just want peace." He was quiet for a moment. "Mom wouldn't want this. You know that, right?" "I know." After we hung up, I continued packing. Claire watched me carry boxes, a satisfied look on her face, like she'd won something important. Over the next week, I moved most of my belongings to a storage unit across town. I'd found a small apartment near my office, a one-bedroom that cost twice what I wanted to pay but was available immediately. Claire had a contractor come through to assess renovation costs. She'd already picked out new countertops, new appliances, a whole new aesthetic that would erase every trace of Linda and me. "I'm thinking of renting it out for a few years," she told the contractor while I was in the kitchen. "Maybe $3,500 a month. What do you think the market will bear?" The contractor glanced at me uncomfortably. "Ah, that seems reasonable for the neighborhood." I kept packing. On my last day in the house, I stood in the living room where Linda and I had watched movies every Friday night, where we'd hosted Christmas dinners and birthday parties, where she'd told me about her diagnosis. Her voice steady, even as tears ran down her face. "Claire arrived with paperwork. I need you to sign this. It's a statement confirming you've removed all your personal property and have no further claim to the house." I read the document. It was written by an attorney, formal and cold, establishing that I was voluntarily vacating and acknowledging Claire's ownership. "I'm not signing this," I said. Her face hardened. "Then I'll have you removed by the sheriff." "On what grounds?" "This house isn't yours, Claire." "Yes, it is. Mom bought it 25 years ago. It's been in our family. Your mother and I were married. That makes it marital property under California law. She had it before you got married. That makes it separate property." I almost smiled. Almost. "You should talk to a lawyer before you make that assumption." "I have talked to a lawyer. He said that since Mom owned the house before you married, and since you're not on the deed, you have no legal claim." "Did you tell him about the refinance?" Claire's expression flickered. "What refinance?" "The one we did 4 years ago, when interest rates dropped. We refinanced the house together. Both our names are on the loan. Both our names are on the new deed." The color drained from her face. "You're lying. Check with the county recorder's office, or look in the filing cabinet in the den. All the paperwork is there." I picked up my last box and walked to the door. "You have 30 days to figure out your next move. That's more generous than you gave me." I drove to my new apartment and didn't look back. The apartment was depressing. Beige walls, thin carpet, the smell of other people's cooking seeping through the vents. But it was quiet, and after 2 years of hospitals and hospice, I needed quiet. I unpacked slowly, setting up my small space. My engineering books on a shelf, my clothes in a cramped closet, photos of Linda on the nightstand, her smile frozen in happier times. Marcus called that evening. "Claire just called me screaming. Something about your name being on the deed." "It is." "Why didn't you tell her that from the beginning?" "She didn't ask. She assumed." Marcus laughed. The first moment of levity in a terrible week. "Mom would have loved this. She always said Claire needed to learn that not everything comes easy." "Your mother wouldn't have loved any of this, Marcus. She'd be heartbroken that her daughter treated me this way." "You're right. I'm sorry. What happens now?" Now Claire learns that assumptions and reality are different things. Over the next few days, I focused on work, threw myself into structural calculations and project reviews, anything to avoid thinking about the empty apartment, the missing presence of Linda, the wreckage of what should have been family. Claire tried calling. I didn't answer. She sent texts demanding I explain the deed situation. I deleted them without responding. 2 weeks after the funeral, Marcus came to Sacramento. We met for dinner at Linda's favorite Italian restaurant, the place where she and I had celebrated anniversaries and birthdays. "Claire hired a lawyer," Marcus said. "She's claiming fraud or duress or something. Says you manipulated Mom into putting your name on the deed. Linda wanted to refinance to get a better rate. We were married. The bank required both names. No manipulation, just standard mortgage procedures." "I know that. You know that." Claire's lawyer probably knows that, but she's not giving up. What does she want? The house. She's offering to buy you out 25% of the current value. I set down my fork. The house is worth at least $650,000 now. She's offering me $162,000 for half. She claims you're only entitled to half the appreciation that occurred during your marriage. Her lawyer calculated that as about 25% of the total value. That's not how California community property law works. I know. I told her she's being unreasonable. She told me to stay out of it. I thought about Linda, about her last days. She'd made me promise not to let grief destroy me, to move forward, to build a new life. She'd also made me promise to take care of her children if they needed it. But she'd never imagined her daughter would do this. Tell Claire I'll consider reasonable offers, I said. But 25% isn't reasonable. A week later, Claire's lawyer sent a formal letter. They were offering $200,000 for my half of the house, still below market value, but closer to reasonable. I called my own attorney, Richard Moss, who'd helped Linda and me with estate planning. They're lowballing you, Richard said after reviewing the offer. Current market value for that house is probably $675,000. Your half is worth $337,500. They're offering you 60 cents on the dollar. What are my options? You can force a sale, file a partition action. The court would order the house sold and the proceeds split 50-50. But that's expensive, time-consuming, and nasty. What's the alternative? Negotiate. Find a number you can live with. Or keep the house and buy her out. I thought about living in that house without Linda, walking through rooms full of ghosts, sleeping in a bed where she died. I don't want the house, I said, but I want fair value. Then let's counter at $325,000. Meet somewhere in the middle. Richard sent the counteroffer. Claire's lawyer responded with $225,000, claiming the house needed extensive repairs that would reduce its value. Back and forth, the negotiations dragged through March and into April. Meanwhile, I lived in my depressing apartment, worked long hours, and tried not to think about how grief and greed had poisoned what should have been family. Marcus kept me updated on Claire's situation. She'd quit her San Francisco job, planning to move back to Sacramento and live in the house. She'd already hired a contractor to start renovations. She's spending money like she already owns the place, Marcus said. New kitchen, new bathrooms, the whole thing. Probably 80 grand in upgrades. Before the settlement is finalized, she's convinced her lawyer will force you to accept the low offer. Something about you abandoning the property. I hadn't abandoned it. I'd left under duress after being told I wasn't welcome, but proving that in court would be expensive and ugly. In May, Claire's lawyer made a final offer. $250,000. Take it or leave it. I sat in Richard's office, looking at the number. Still $87,500 below fair market value. Still a loss of thousands of dollars. What happens if I refuse? I asked. They'll either force a partition sale or try to make your life difficult enough that you accept. It could take years. I thought about Linda, about the values she tried to instill in Claire. Fairness, integrity, treating people with respect. Counter at $300,000, I said. Final offer. If they refuse, we proceed with partition. Richard sent the counter. 2 days later, Claire's lawyer accepted. The closing was scheduled for June 15th. I would receive $300,000. Claire would own the house outright. We would never have to speak again. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. The night before closing, Marcus called. Rob, there's something you should know. About the property taxes. What about them? They're due. Annual bill, about $8,100. Claire's been living in the house since February, spending money on renovations, but she hasn't paid the taxes. Why are you telling me this? Because the county sent a notice. If the taxes aren't paid by June 30th, they'll start the land process. And since your name is still on the deed until tomorrow, you're still legally responsible. I checked my records. The last property tax payment had been made in December, before Linda died. The next installment had been due in April, unpaid. Has Claire seen this notice? I asked. I don't know. I just saw it when I was helping clear out some of Mom's old papers. The next day, I met Claire and her lawyer at the title company. We signed the papers in silence, barely looking at each other. The title officer handed me a check for $300,000. Claire received the deed showing sole ownership. It's done, Claire said to her lawyer, not to me. Finally. I took my check and left. That evening, I deposited the money and sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. $300,000 for 8 years of marriage, 2 years of caretaking, and a lifetime of memories. It didn't seem like enough. But it was done. June passed. I heard from Marcus that Claire had finished the renovations and was planning a housewarming party. She'd invited everyone except me. The place looks completely different, Marcus said. You wouldn't recognize it. She's erased everything. That was the point. July came. The Sacramento heat was brutal, and my apartment's air conditioning barely worked. I spent most of my time at the office or at the gym, avoiding the depressing space I'd rented. On July 15th, Marcus called with an edge in his voice. Rob, did you know about the property tax situation? What situation? Claire just called me freaking out. The county sent her a delinquency notice. Apparently, the taxes haven't been paid since December. She's owned the house for a month. She should pay them. That's what I told her. But she's saying you owe them because the bill was for January through June, before she took ownership. The property tax bill is prorated at closing. It should have been handled by the title company. She's saying it wasn't. She's saying you owe her $8,100. I pulled out my closing documents and reviewed them carefully. There, in the settlement statement, was a line item, property tax proration, $4,050 credited to buyer. Claire had received a credit at closing for her share of the tax bill. She'd been paid $4,050 to cover the taxes from the date she took ownership through the end of the tax year. Marcus, she was credited for the taxes at closing. She has the money. She just needs to pay the bill. She's saying she already spent that money on closing costs. That's not my problem. She's threatening to sue you for the full amount. I hung up and called Richard Moss. Claire's claiming I owe property taxes on the house. Richard reviewed the closing documents. She received a proration credit. The taxes are her responsibility now. If she wants to sue you, she'll lose, and she'll pay your attorney fees for the trouble. I forwarded the closing documents to Marcus with the relevant section highlighted. He sent them to Claire. She stopped calling about the taxes. August arrived. I was slowly adjusting to life without Linda, though the grief still hit me at unexpected moments. A song on the radio, a smell from someone's kitchen, the way afternoon light slanted through the windows. I'd started attending a grief support group at a local church. 7 people, all dealing with loss, all trying to figure out how to move forward. It helped, having others who understood the weight of absence. At one meeting, a woman named Ellen talked about her late husband, how his family had contested the will, claiming she'd manipulated him, how she'd fought them in court for 2 years before finally reaching a settlement. The worst part wasn't the legal battle, she said. It was the assumption that I was just a gold digger. Like 32 years of marriage meant nothing because I wasn't blood family. I understood that feeling. After the meeting, Ellen approached me. You're the engineer, right? Robert? Rob, yeah. Your wife passed in February. Cancer? Ovarian. 2 years of treatment. I'm sorry. That's a long, hard road. We started talking regularly, just coffee after meetings, sharing stories about loss and recovery. Ellen was 48, a high school teacher, and she had a quiet strength that reminded me of Linda in some ways. She asked about my family situation once. I told her the abbreviated version: stepdaughter, funeral, eviction, settlement. That's awful, Ellen said. Family should protect you when you're grieving, not attack you. She didn't see me as family. Then she didn't understand what family means. In September, Marcus called with news. Claire's trying to sell the house. Already? She just finished renovating. She's in over her head financially. The renovations cost more than she expected. She borrowed money for them, thinking she could refinance once she owned the house outright. And the bank won't refinance. Her debt-to-income ratio is too high. She needs to sell to pay off the renovation loans. I felt no satisfaction in this, just sadness that Linda's daughter had made such poor choices. What's she asking? $725,000. But the market's softening. Her agent thinks she'll be lucky to get $680,000. After paying off the renovation loans and the remaining mortgage, Claire would walk away with maybe $250,000, less than half of what the house would have been worth if she'd left it alone. Mom would be disappointed, Marcus said quietly. Claire had everything. The house was paid off, in good condition, in a great neighborhood. She could have just lived there, been grateful. Instead, she had to prove something, and now she's losing money. Pride is expensive, I said. The house sold in October for $665,000. Claire paid off her debts and moved to a condo in Roseville, farther from the city, smaller, and less impressive than the home her mother had left behind. She never apologized. Never acknowledged that she'd been wrong about the deed, wrong about the value, wrong about what mattered. Marcus and I stayed in touch. He visited Sacramento regularly, and we have dinner, sharing stories about Linda, keeping her memory alive in ways her daughter seemed unable to do. In November, Ellen invited me to Thanksgiving at her house. Her adult children would be there, along with some friends, and she didn't want me spending the holiday alone. I almost declined. The thought of inserting myself into someone else's family felt wrong. But Ellen insisted, and I was tired of frozen dinners in my sad apartment. The dinner was warm and chaotic. Ellen's kids, both in their 20s, treated me with easy acceptance. Her friends were welcoming. For a few hours, I felt something like belonging. You look lighter, Ellen said as we cleared dishes. Less burdened. I think I'm finally accepting that Linda's gone. That life continues even when you think it can't. It's been 9 months. That's progress. It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago at the same time. She touched my arm. That's grief. It doesn't follow timelines. In December, nearly a year after Linda's death, I received a letter from Claire. Not an email or a text, an actual handwritten letter. I almost threw it away unread, but curiosity won. Rob, I've been thinking about the past year, about how I treated you after Mom died. Marcus says I should apologize, but I'm not sure you want to hear from me. I was wrong about the house. I was wrong about a lot of things. I thought I was protecting Mom's legacy, but really I was just being greedy and cruel. You were there for her when I wasn't. You held her hand through treatments I was too afraid to witness. You made her last years happy when she could have been alone. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did, and I'm sorry. Claire. I read the letter 3 times, set it down, picked it up again. Was it genuine? Or was it Marcus's coaching? An attempt to repair what couldn't be fixed? I didn't know if it mattered. I wrote back a single sentence. Thank you for writing. I hope you're well. That was all I had to offer. Not forgiveness exactly, but not continued anger either, just acknowledgement and the willingness to let it go. In January, a year after Linda's death, I took her ashes to Lake Tahoe, where we'd spent our honeymoon. I scattered them in the water as the sun rose over the mountains. Marcus was there. Ellen came too, holding my hand as I said goodbye to the woman I'd loved. She was lucky to have you, Ellen said afterward. I was lucky to have her. Both things can be true. By February, I'd moved out of the depressing apartment into a small house I'd purchased in Land Park. 2 bedrooms, a yard, a place that finally felt like home again. Ellen helped me paint and set up the furniture. We'd been dating officially for a month, taking things slow, both of us cautious after loss. This feels right, she said, looking around the living room we just arranged. Like you're building something new. I am. Finally. In March, 2 years after Linda's death, I was at a coffee shop when I saw Claire. She was with a man I didn't recognize, laughing at something he'd said. She saw me at the same moment. Her smile faded. We stared at each other across the crowded shop. 2 people connected by loss and mistakes. She walked over. Rob, hi. Claire, how are you? Okay. Getting by. This is Drew, my fiancé. I shook his hand. Congratulations. Thank you. She hesitated. Listen, I know things ended badly between us. I wanted to. I hope you're doing well. I am. I hope you are too. The condo's okay. Smaller than I'm used to, but it works. She paused. I drove by the old house last month. The new owners painted it yellow. Mom would have hated that. She would have, I agreed. I shouldn't have. Claire stopped, then started again. I made mistakes. I know that now. Mom would be disappointed in how I treated you. She'd want us both to be happy. That's what she cared about. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I miss her. Me too. We stood there, 2 people who'd loved the same woman in different ways, who'd hurt each other in grief, who were finally finding a way forward. Marcus is getting married, Claire said, changing the subject. In June. Are you? You'll be there, right? He invited me. I'm planning to attend. Good. That's good. She glanced at Drew, then back at me. Maybe we can talk more then. Really talk. About Mom. About what happened. About making peace with all of it. I'd like that. She hugged me briefly, awkwardly. Then she and Drew left, and I was alone with my coffee and my thoughts. Ellen met me for lunch an hour later. You look contemplative. What's going on? I saw Claire. We talked. How was it? Sad. Hopeful. Human. I took Ellen's hand across the table. Linda always said grief brings out the worst and best in people. I think we're both trying to find our way to the best part now. That's all anyone can do. Marcus's wedding in June was beautiful, a small ceremony in Portland, intimate and heartfelt. Both Claire and I attended, sitting on opposite sides but acknowledging each other with nods and careful smiles. At the reception, Claire approached me. Can we talk? Somewhere quiet? We found a bench outside the venue, away from the music and celebration. I've been in therapy, Claire said without preamble. Processing Mom's death, my choices, all of it. That's good. My therapist helped me understand that I was scared. Watching Mom die made me realize how temporary everything is. I wanted to hold on to something tangible, something that proved she existed. The house. The house. But in trying to keep it, I destroyed what it represented: family, love, stability. All the things Mom actually cared about. I said nothing, letting her speak. I sold it for less than it was worth. Spent money I didn't have trying to make it something it wasn't. And in the process, I pushed away the people who actually knew her, who could have shared memories with me. It's not too late, I said. Marcus is here. I'm here. Your mother's story doesn't end just because she's gone. I don't deserve your kindness. Probably not, but Linda would want me to offer it anyway. Claire cried then, quietly, grief finally breaking through the wall of anger and pride. I'm so sorry, Rob. For all of it. For how I treated you at the funeral. For trying to take the house. For being cruel when you were grieving too. I forgive you, I said, and meant it. We sat together as the sun set over Portland, two people who'd navigated the worst of grief and come out damaged but intact. Tell me about Mom, Claire said eventually. The things I missed, the last days. So I did. Told her about Linda's final weeks, about the conversations we'd had about legacy and love, about how she'd made me promise to move forward, to find happiness again, to not let her death define my life. She talked about you constantly, I said. Worried you were working too hard, not taking care of yourself. She wanted you to find balance, to find peace. I never knew that. She didn't want you to feel guilty. She just wanted you to be happy. I wasn't there when she needed me. You're here now. That's what matters. The wedding reception went late. Ellen and I danced, talked with Marcus and his new wife, and celebrated the continuity of life and love. As we were leaving, Marcus pulled me aside. Thank you for talking to Claire. She needed that. We both did. Mom would be proud of you. You know that, right? How you handled everything. The house, the grief, the grace you showed even when Claire didn't deserve it. Your mother taught me that grace. I'm just trying to honor her memory. You're doing more than that. You're living the values she believed in. Driving back to Sacramento that night, Ellen asleep in the passenger seat, I thought about houses and homes, about ownership and belonging. Claire had wanted the house because she thought it represented her mother. But Linda had never been about the building. She'd been about the love inside it, the memories created there, the family that gathered within its walls. The house was gone now, painted yellow by strangers, occupied by people who knew nothing of the life Linda and I had built there. But Linda remained, in the lessons she'd taught, in the love she'd given, in the grace she'd modeled even in her final days. That was the real inheritance, not property or possessions, but values and wisdom passed from one generation to the next. Claire had learned that lesson the hard way, but she'd learned it. And maybe that was what Linda would have wanted after all. 3 years after Linda's death, I married Ellen in a small ceremony at our home in Land Park. Marcus officiated. Claire attended with Drew, her fiancé. We'd become not exactly close, but civil, occasionally meeting for coffee to share memories of Linda. At the reception, Claire gave a toast. Rob loved my mother in ways I didn't understand at the time. He gave her peace and partnership. He stayed when things got hard. He showed me what real family looks like, even when I refused to see it. She raised her glass. To Rob and Ellen. To new beginnings built on old wisdom. To love that lasts beyond property and pride. We drank to that. Later, as guests mingled in our backyard, I found a quiet moment with Ellen. Are you happy? She asked. I am. Are you? Very. Linda would have liked you, I said. You remind me of her in the ways that matter. Strength, compassion, the ability to see beyond what's easy to what's right. I wish I could have met her. In a way you have. She's part of why I'm the man you fell in love with. Ellen kissed me. Then I owe her a debt I can never repay. Live well. That's how we pay our debts to the dead. 4 years after Linda's death, Claire had a daughter. She named her Linda, after her mother, and asked if I wanted to be part of the child's life, as a grandfather figure. I'd be honored, I said. I held baby Linda in the hospital, this new life carrying an old name, and felt the circle completing itself. Loss and renewal, ending and beginning, the constant cycle of human experience. Mom would have loved this, Claire said from the hospital bed. She would have. I'm going to tell her about everything, when she's old enough to understand. About her grandmother, about you, about the lessons I learned too late. Teach her about grace, I said, about forgiveness, about the difference between what we own and what we value. I will. 5 years after Linda's death, I stood in front of the old house on a Saturday morning. The yellow paint had faded to a muted gold. The garden looked different, the trees bigger. Ellen was beside me, patient as always. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "I miss her. The house is just a building. Ready to go." I took one last look at the place where I'd loved Linda, where we'd built a life, where she died in my arms. Then I turned away. Ready. We drove to our own home, the one we'd built together, filled with new memories and continued love. Behind us, the old house stood silent under the California sun, holding secrets only the walls remembered. But the real home, the one that mattered, wasn't made of walls at all. It was made of love that persisted beyond property, of grace that survived betrayal, of wisdom earned through suffering, of forgiveness offered when it wasn't deserved. That was Linda's legacy, not a house Claire had sold, not property or possessions, but values that lived on in the people she'd touched, the lives she'd changed, the love she'd given without condition or expectation. And that legacy couldn't be seized or sold or painted yellow. It was mine forever, regardless of what name appeared on any deed.